Hello, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to make another hearty meal for the winter we are preparing ourselves. Today we are going to prepare a lamb meat with the samp and beans. The samp is actually 1.5 cup which was rinsed and soaked overnight. And the beans is 1 cup which was picked and rinsed and soaked overnight. Because we want to do something very quick, so that's the reason why we soaked our samp and our beans. Okay, I got some lamb meat here, but I mostly use the ribs and the fatty part of the meat for the samp and beans, because the flavors of the fat seeps into the samp and the beans. In fact, this is about 800 to 1 kilo. Why we use less meat for samp and beans? Because the samp and the beans stretches the meat and makes the curry more filling. The meat is actually a biryani marinade. I did show you all how I marinate the biryani meat. I prefer it overnight marinated, but you can have it for about 4 hours. It's actually marinated with the chops, spice and barbecue spice, ginger garlic, some thyme, and half a cup of sour milk. Okay, I got a nice large pot on a high heat. We are going to actually work with a high heat. And I have a kettle of water that's 8 cups. I'm pouring it in. And while the process of boiling, we'll see whether we need more water. But for now, that's enough. Firstly, I'm going to put in my samp to boil and leave it to boil for about half an hour on high. I've put in my samp into the 8 cups of water, and I'll allow this to boil for about half an hour, and thereafter we will add in our other ingredients. Okay, now I'm going to slow braise my meat while the samp is boiling. The ingredients are 1/4 cup of oil and half of 1 onion and a little bit cinnamon stick, Elaichi, because I already have biryani mix powder in my masala, and I have 2 tablespoons of mixed masala and the bay leaves as well. My pot has heated up well. I'm going to use my 1/4 cup of oil, and then I'm going to braise in my onions. This is just like our mutton, basic mutton biryani, but just without the biryani dal, or the basic mutton curry without the potatoes. Okay, my onions are halfway through. I'm going to put in my cinnamon stick and my bay leaves and my Elaichi. The reason why I don't use much of my biryani mix, because I already have a biryani mix in my original masala. I did show you all how I mix my masalas. And why I'm not using ginger garlic today, because I marinated my meat with ginger garlic and the thyme and the curry leaf. The onions and the biryani stick has fried out nicely, and I'm using 2 tablespoons of masala We are not going to overpower this dish with a lot of masala. It's not something that has to have a lot of masala. And then I'm going to place in my meat in the masala. And I also got 1 small teaspoon of rough salt because our marinade has salt, and we are also going to use salt in our samp. And I'm going to lower this heat and let this cook on gentle heat. Okay, before covering my pot with the lid, I'm going to allow this to cook very gentle for, I'll give it a half an hour and I'll keep watching. It will cook in its own gravies. Okay, half an hour has passed us. You can see my water has reduced and the samp has absorbed the water. Thereafter, I'm going to add another kettle of boiling water to it. And as I said to you, because we are working on a high flame, then you must always be very careful that when your samp is boiling, always have your lid half opened, because the reason being it can flow over. Now I'm going to add in my sugar beans. The samp has actually gone a little soft, and the sugar beans won't take very much of a time to boil out. And in that I'm going to add in a tablespoon of rough salt, but you can taste, and half a teaspoon of HURDEE. We don't have to overpower our HURDEE with, because we have masalas already in the meat. A stick of cinnamon stick and some bay leaf. That's about 3 bay leaves, and then I'll give it a good stir, and I'll cover my lid halfway to avoid it boiling over. And this is my meat. You can see it's cooking on slow, and you can see it's quite fatty meat. If you feel your meat is slightly tough, you can, when your meat actually comes to a frying level, you feel your meat, it's slightly tough, then you can add maybe half a cup of water to tenderize it. But it's not really necessary, because it's going to finish off cooking into the samp. I will leave the samp for another half an hour to boil out. Okay, half an hour has passed by. My beans is sort of getting very soft, and my meat is actually done. I'm going to wait for it to get a little more dry, and thereafter, in the meantime, I sliced a large onion and I'm frying it out in the oil for garnishing my samp, but I won't be using the oil. I'll just take off the onions off, drain off the oil out of the onion, and then garnish. Okay, the beans has been boiling for about 45 minutes, and you can see how soft it's gone, and the samp is also soft. And then now is the time for me to put in. My mutton is also done. See, It's quite a fatty meat, looking very nicely done. I will switch my stove off because I'm going to pour in my meat into the pot for it to actually cook with. This is the reason why when putting the samp to boil, you can actually prepare your mutton at the same time, so you get the both items cooking steadily together. I will leave this for another 15 minutes and then I'll be ready to garnish. Okay, as the gravy is sort of thickening, I continue to stir it because I don't want it to settle in the bottom and start burning. And looking about the amount, depending on a person's appetite, you can actually feed 4 to 6 people. Now I'm gonna throw in my garnishes. I've got a large onion fried out and drained from the oil because we don't like the meal to be very oily. So I garnish with my onion. And then I have a whole lot of Dhania. It's nice to use a lot of garnish. And a whole lot of spring onion. Samp and mutton was our all-time favorite for my brothers. I wish they were here to enjoy with me. Here you go, a very hearty and a simple winter's meal. As you can see, it's not very spicy, it's not very oily, but it's very delicious with lots of fat in it. And it will actually go very well with the Dhania chutney. Thank you for watching and enjoy. Okay, there was a small story behind our meat and samp. When we were growing up in Sazela, we used to get a butcher that actually came by bicycle, who lived in Pennington, and he had a small livestock where he used to slaughter his lamb and his sheep, and he used to come to the barracks to sell the meat to us. And he always used to wrap his meat in brown paper. So we always used to run behind his bicycle and say, "There's Kaida uncle coming, selling us meat with brown paper," because Kaida means paper. And he also used to prepare mutton with samp and bring for my mom, because my mom used to like his cooking. And that's how samp and meat became our favorite of all times.